Queen Lyrelith stood on the crystal balcony of her palace, watching the purple sky of Zephyria Prime turn gold with the setting sun. Her long silver hair moved gently in the warm breeze. The crystalline skin on her face caught the light, making small rainbows dance across her features. She was beautiful in the way her people were beautiful, tall, graceful, and glowing with an inner light that came from centuries of peace. Today should have been a day of celebration. Her daughter, Princess Cyrillith, was returning from a diplomatic mission to the Korthak Empire. The mission was supposed to bring peace between their two species. The Zephyrians had always solved problems with words, not weapons. They believed that any conflict could be resolved if people just talked to each other with open hearts and minds. Queen Lyrelith touched the silver communication crystal that hung around her neck. Through this crystal, she could speak mind to mind with any Zephyrian across the galaxy. It was how their people stayed connected, sharing thoughts and feelings as easily as humans shared words. Right now, the crystal was quiet. Too quiet. The diplomatic ship should have returned 3 hours ago. Queen Lyrelith tried not to worry. Space travel could be unpredictable. Maybe they had stopped to help another ship, or perhaps they were delayed by asteroid fields. Princess Cyrillith was careful and smart. She would come home safely. The Queen remembered the day her daughter had volunteered for this mission. Princess Cyrillith had stood in the Great Council chamber, her young face serious but determined. "Mother," she had said, "the Korthak people are angry and hurt. They think we look down on them because we refuse to fight. But if I can show them that we respect their strength while offering our wisdom, maybe we can find a way to live in peace." The Queen had been proud but worried. The Korthak were so different from her people. Where Zephyrians were tall and elegant, the Korthak were short and muscular with thick gray skin and fierce red eyes. Where Zephyrians solved problems by sharing thoughts and feelings, the Korthak believed that strength and honor came from battle. They had built their empire through conquest, taking what they wanted from weaker species. But Princess Cyrillith believed that underneath all that anger and violence, the Korthak were just afraid. Afraid that the galaxy would leave them behind. Afraid that their way of life had no place in a universe that was growing more peaceful every year. "If we can show them that strength and peace can work together," the princess had said, "maybe they will not feel so alone." The Queen walked back into her private chambers and sat down at her meditation pool. The water was perfectly still, reflecting the crystal ceiling above. She placed her hands on the surface and tried to reach out with her mind, searching for her daughter's familiar presence among the stars. At first, there was nothing. Then, like a whisper at the edge of hearing, she felt something. Fear. Pain. And then, cutting through the silence like a blade, came her daughter's voice. "Mother." The word crashed into Queen Lyrelith's mind with such force that she fell backwards from the pool. The communication crystal around her neck grew hot against her skin. Through the telepathic link, she could feel everything her daughter was feeling. Terror, betrayal, and underneath it all, a desperate love and the need to say goodbye. "Mother, they lied to us. The Korthak never wanted peace. They brought us here to kill us, all of us. The other diplomats are already dead. I can see their bodies. Mother, I love you. I love our people. Please do not let them change who we are. Please do not let them make us like them. Remember me, but do not let hatred grow in our hearts because of what happens to me." The connection grew weaker. Princess Cyrillith was dying. "Mother, I am not afraid. I have lived a good life. I have known love and beauty and peace. That is more than many beings ever know. Take care of our people. Help them stay strong without becoming cruel. I must go now. They are coming. I love you." And then there was silence. Queen Lyrelith lay on the floor of her chamber, her whole body shaking. The communication crystal around her neck had gone cold and dark. She tried to reach out again, searching desperately for any sign of her daughter's presence, but there was nothing. The galaxy felt empty and cold. Hours passed. The Queen did not move from the floor. Her advisors found her there when they came to tell her that the diplomatic ship had been found drifting in space. All hands lost. They did not need to tell her. She already knew. The news spread quickly through Zephyrian society. Princess Cyrillith had been beloved by her people, not just because she was their future queen, but because she represented the best of what they could be. She was kind but not weak, wise but not arrogant, peaceful but not passive. Her death was not just the loss of one person. It was the loss of hope itself. In the days that followed, something changed in the hearts of the Zephyrian people. They had lived for centuries without knowing real violence or loss. They had thought that evil was something that could be cured with understanding and patience. Now they learned that some beings chose darkness not because they were afraid or hurt, but because they enjoyed causing pain. The Korthak Empire made their intentions clear. They sent a message to Queen Lyrillith, broadcasted across all Zephyrian worlds. The message was simple. Your daughter begged for her life before we killed her. Your people will do the same. We are coming for you. Queen Lyrillith stood before the Great Council, her face pale but her voice steady. My friends, she said, we are at war. The words felt strange in her mouth. War was something that happened to other species, not to them. But as she looked at the faces of her people, she saw the same shock and grief that filled her own heart. They had lost their innocence along with their princess. We do not want this war, the queen continued. We will not become like them. But we cannot let them destroy other innocent lives the way they destroyed our Cyrillith. We will defend ourselves and others who cannot defend themselves. We will be strong without being cruel. We will fight without losing our souls. But even as she spoke these brave words, Queen Lyrillith felt doubt growing in her heart. Her people were scientists and artists and philosophers. They built things of beauty, not weapons of war. How could they fight an enemy that lived for battle? How could they win against beings who had spent their whole lives learning how to kill? That night, alone in her chambers, Queen Lyrillith wept for her daughter and for the innocence her people had lost. She did not know that this was only the beginning. She did not know that the war would last for years and cost countless lives. She did not know that salvation would come from an unexpected source, a species that the galaxy feared almost as much as they feared the Korthak. She did not know about the humans. Outside her window, the first Zephyrian warships were being built, their crystal hulls beautiful even in their deadly purpose. The galaxy was about to learn that even the most peaceful beings would fight when pushed too far. But it would also learn that some wars cannot be won with traditional weapons and tactics. Sometimes it takes monsters to fight monsters, and sometimes the monsters come from a small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy, where beings had learned long ago that survival sometimes required doing terrible things for good reasons. The war was coming. And with it, hope from the most unlikely source of all. 3 years had passed since Princess Cyrillith died, and the war with the Korthak Empire was not going well. Queen Lyrillith stood in the command center of her flagship, watching red dots disappear from the star map. Each red dot was a Zephyrian world. Each disappearing dot meant millions of her people were dead or enslaved. The queen looked older now. Her crystal skin had lost much of its glow, turning dull and gray like old glass. Deep lines marked her face where once there had been only smooth beauty. Her silver hair had begun to turn white at the roots. The other Zephyrians who saw her were shocked at how much she had changed. Their people usually lived for thousands of years and aged very slowly, but grief and stress were killing their queen faster than time ever could. Your Majesty, said Admiral Korveth, her military commander. He was young for his position, but most of the older admirals were dead now. We have received reports from the Altair system. The Korthak fleet has broken through our defenses. The colony ships are evacuating, but he did not need to finish. Queen Lyrillith could read the truth in his mind through their telepathic connection. Most of the civilians would not escape in time. Another world would fall. Another million Zephyrians would die. How many ships do we have left? The queen asked. 237, Your Majesty. But 40 of those need major repairs. The queen closed her eyes. When the war began, they had over 1,000 ships. The Zephyrians were good at building beautiful things, but they had never been good at building things meant to destroy. Their ships were works of art, made from living crystal that could heal itself and powered by the same telepathic energy that connected their people. But art, no matter how beautiful, could not stand against the brutal efficiency of Korthak war machines. The Korthak built their ships for one purpose: killing. They were ugly gray blocks of metal and weapons, but they were fast and deadly. Where Zephyrian ships danced through space like graceful birds, Korthak ships moved like hungry sharks, always attacking, always looking for blood. What do our allies say? Queen Lyrillith asked. Admiral Korveth's expression grew even more grim. The Galactic Council met yesterday. They are willing to provide more support, but only if we agree to their terms. The Queen knew what those terms were. The Council wanted the Zephyrians to abandon their peaceful ways completely. They wanted her people to build weapons that could destroy entire planets. They wanted her to authorize attacks on Korthak civilian targets. They wanted her to become just as cruel and ruthless as their enemies. And if we refuse, then they will declare our cause hopeless and pull back their remaining support. They say we are too soft to win this war. They say we care more about keeping our souls clean than about saving our people. Queen Lyrillith turned away from the star map and walked to the great window that looked out into space. In the distance, she could see the wreckage of the battle they had just fought. Pieces of Zephyrian ships floated among the debris like broken jewels. Each piece represented lives lost, families destroyed, dreams ended. The Council was not wrong. The Zephyrians were losing because they refused to fight like their enemies. Even now, even after everything the Korthak had done, the Queen could not bring herself to order attacks on their civilian populations. She could not authorize weapons that would poison their worlds or destroy their children. To do such things would mean becoming the very evil they were fighting against. But her refusal to sink to that level was costing more lives every day. How many Zephyrian children had to die so that Korthak children could live? How many of her people had to suffer so that she could keep her conscience clean? Your Majesty, Admiral Corveth said quietly, there is one more option. The Queen turned back to him. What option? Mercenaries. There are species in the galaxy who fight for money rather than principles. They do not care about our moral codes. They will do whatever it takes to win. You want us to hire killers. I want us to survive. The Draknari Syndicate has offered their services. So have the Thexian war clans. Either of them could turn this war around in our favor. Queen Lyrillith shook her head. The Draknari torture prisoners for information. The Thexians eat their enemies. How are they any better than the Korthak? They are not our enemies. And right now, that is all that matters. The Queen was quiet for a long moment. Through the ship's telepathic network, she could feel the emotions of her crew. Fear, desperation, the slow, creeping realization that they were going to lose this war, that their entire species might be wiped out because they were too good to fight dirty. What about the humans? She asked suddenly. Admiral Corveth blinked in surprise. The humans? Your Majesty, they are a young species. They have barely left their home system. They have no experience with galactic warfare. But they have experience with warfare. I have read the reports about their history. They have been fighting each other for thousands of years. They know things about war that we have never learned. They are also supposed to be very strange, unpredictable. The other species fear them. Good. Maybe that is what we need. Someone the Korthak will not expect. Admiral Corveth looked uncertain. Your Majesty, hiring humans would be a risk. No one knows how they think or what they might do. They do not follow the normal rules of engagement that civilized species use. That caught the Queen's attention. What do you mean? Well, for example, most species in the galaxy have honor codes about warfare. You do not attack medical ships. You do not target civilian populations unless they are military threats. You allow surrendering enemies to live. But the humans, their history suggests they will do whatever they believe is necessary to win. They change tactics constantly. They use deception and surprise attacks. They turn their enemies' strengths against them. Queen Lyrillith thought about this. The Korthak were winning because they were predictable in their brutality. They followed patterns that could be learned and countered, if you were willing to be as brutal as they were. But what if you could beat them without becoming like them? What if you could use their own rigid thinking against them? Contact the humans, she said finally. Your Majesty, you heard me. Send a message to the human government. Tell them we want to hire their military forces. Ask them what they want in payment. Admiral Corveth hesitated. The Council will not approve of this. Hiring humans is almost as controversial as hiring the Draknari. The Council has already failed us. If they cannot help us win while remaining true to our values, then we will find another way. That night, Queen Lyrillith stood alone in her private quarters, looking at a holographic image of her daughter. Princess Cyrillith smiled back at her, frozen forever in a moment of joy and hope. The Queen touched the image with one finger, watching it shimmer and dissolve. I am sorry, my daughter, she whispered. I am about to do something that you might not approve of. I am going to hire warriors who do not think like us, who do not value the same things we value, but I cannot let your death be meaningless. I cannot let our people disappear from the galaxy. The message had already been sent to Earth. Soon the Queen would learn what humans wanted in exchange for their help. She was not sure what they would ask for. Money? Technology? Territory? Or would they want something else entirely? Something that no one else had ever thought to request. What Queen Lyrelith did not know was that the humans would ask for only one thing: detailed information about every Zephyrian who had been captured or killed by the Korthak. They would want to know about Princess Cyrilleth and all the others who had died in this war. She did not know that humans had a saying: leave no one behind. She did not know that to humans, death was not always final, and that impossible rescues were just another kind of problem to be solved. She did not know that her daughter might still be alive. The war was about to change in ways that no one in the galaxy could predict. The Korthak had awakened something ancient and peaceful, and now that thing was about to call upon something young and dangerous. The combination would reshape the balance of power among the stars. Tomorrow the humans would answer, and nothing would ever be the same. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of his ship, the Indomitable, and watched the Zephyrian fleet through the main viewer. He had seen many beautiful things in his travels across the galaxy, but nothing quite like this. The alien ships looked like they were made of living starlight, their crystal hulls catching and reflecting the light of nearby stars. They moved through space with an elegance that human ships could never match. "Beautiful," said Lieutenant Sarah Kim, his tactical officer. "No wonder they are losing the war." Marcus nodded grimly. Beauty was not enough in warfare. He had learned that lesson many times in his 30 years of military service. The prettiest plan usually failed the fastest when bullets started flying. "Sir," called out Ensign Rodriguez from the communications station, "the Zephyrian Queen is requesting permission to come aboard. Tell her she is welcome. Full honors." Marcus had read everything he could find about Queen Lyrelith during the journey to Zephyrian space. The reports painted a picture of a leader who was both wise and naive, someone who truly believed that every problem could be solved with enough compassion and understanding. 3 years of brutal war had tested that belief, but according to his intelligence sources, she still refused to authorize the kind of tactics that might actually win the conflict. 20 minutes later, Queen Lyrelith materialized in the transporter room of the Indomitable. Marcus had seen pictures of her, but seeing her in person was different. She was tall and graceful, with silver hair that seemed to move in its own breeze and skin that sparkled like crystal. But what struck him most was how tired she looked. This was a being who had been pushed far beyond her limits. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, offering a respectful bow. "Welcome aboard. I am Captain Marcus Chen, commander of the Human Expeditionary Force." Queen Lyrelith studied him with large violet eyes. Marcus knew what she was seeing. A middle-aged human male, average height, with graying hair and scars on his hands from a dozen different battles. Nothing impressive by alien standards. Humans were not the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced species in the galaxy, but they had other qualities that made up for those shortcomings. "Captain Chen," the Queen said, her voice carrying a musical quality that all Zephyrians seemed to possess. "I must admit you are not what I expected." "What did you expect, Your Majesty?" "Something more intimidating. The reports about your species suggest that you are fearsome warriors." Marcus smiled. "The most dangerous enemies are often the ones who do not look dangerous, Your Majesty. Would you like to tour our ship? It might help you understand how humans approach warfare." As they walked through the corridors of the Indomitable, Marcus explained the human philosophy of combat. "Other species design their ships and weapons to be as efficient as possible," he said. "They create optimal solutions for known problems. But humans plan for the unknown. We assume that everything will go wrong, and we build in redundancies and alternatives." They passed a repair bay where human engineers were working on what looked like alien technology. "What are they doing?" the Queen asked. "Adapting Korthak weapons for our use. We captured some of their equipment in a raid last week. Now we are studying it, learning how it works and figuring out how to make it work better." Queen Lyrelith looked troubled. "Is that illegal? Under galactic law?" "Your Majesty, the Korthak stopped following galactic law when they executed your diplomatic mission. We are not bound by rules that our enemies have already broken." They continued the tour, visiting the ship's intelligence center where analysts were studying Korthak battle patterns, the medical bay where captured enemy soldiers were being treated with the same care as human wounded, and the engineering section where impossible modifications were being made to improve ship performance. "I do not understand," Queen Lyrelith said finally. You treat your enemies with kindness, but you also steal their technology and ignore galactic law. How do these things fit together? Marcus paused and turned to face her. Your Majesty, humans learned a long time ago that war is not about good and evil. It is about survival. We can be kind to individuals while being ruthless toward systems. We can follow some rules while breaking others. We can be honorable in victory while being brutal in battle. That seems very complicated. War is complicated. The Korthak understand only strength and domination. Your people understand only peace and cooperation. Neither approach is working because both are too simple. Sometimes you need to be both predator and protector, angel and demon, civilized and savage. Humans are very good at being contradictory. They ended the tour in Marcus's private office, where the Queen sat down heavily in a chair that adjusted itself to her alien physiology. Captain Chen, I must ask you something. Your people demand detailed records of all Zephyrians who have been captured or killed by the Korthak. Why? What do you plan to do with that information? Marcus poured himself a cup of coffee and offered the Queen some Zephyrian tea that his crew had prepared. Your Majesty, has anyone ever told you that your daughter might still be alive? The Queen's cup slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. Her face went pale and her crystal skin seemed to dim. What did you say? Princess Cyrillith. You felt her die 3 years ago, but that does not mean she actually died. The Korthak have a tradition of keeping high-value prisoners for special ceremonies. Important captives are not killed immediately. They are saved for public executions during major celebrations. That is impossible. I felt her mind go silent. The telepathic connection was broken. Yes, but not necessarily by death. There are drugs that can suppress telepathic abilities. Injuries that can sever mental connections without killing the person. Technology that can block psychic communication. Queen Laralith stared at him with growing hope and terror. Are you saying that my daughter has been alive all this time? That she has been suffering as a prisoner for 3 years while I mourned her death? I am saying it is possible. My intelligence officers have been studying Korthak prisoner protocols. They keep detailed records of their captives, and those records suggest that several high-ranking Zephyrians captured early in the war are still alive. The Queen stood up and began pacing around the small office. If this is true, if there is even a chance that Cyrillith is alive, what can we do? The Korthak homeworld is protected by dozens of battle fleets. No rescue mission could succeed. Marcus smiled, and for the first time Queen Lyrillith saw why other species found humans frightening. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who had spotted prey. Your Majesty, you hired us because we do things that other species cannot or will not do. Impossible rescues are a human specialty. We have been planning a mission to the Korthak homeworld since the day we arrived in your space. That is suicide. Even if you could somehow get past their defenses, even if you could locate the prisoners, even if you could extract them, you would never escape. The entire Korthak military would hunt you down. Probably. But that is a problem for tomorrow. Today's problem is getting your people back. Queen Lyrillith stopped pacing and stared at him. You would really do this? Risk your lives for people you barely know? Your Majesty, humans have a saying, leave no one behind. It means that we do not abandon our people no matter the cost. You hired us to fight your war. That makes your people our people. And if the mission fails? If you all die trying to save my daughter? Marcus shrugged. Then we die doing something worthwhile. There are worse ways to go. The Queen was silent for a long time, studying this strange human who spoke of death as casually as he might discuss the weather. Finally she asked, What do you need from me? Everything you can remember about your daughter. Her habits, her preferences, her training. Everything that might help us find her and convince her to trust us. And I will need you to do something very difficult. What? You must publicly continue to mourn her death. If the Korthak suspect that we know she is alive, they will kill her immediately. As far as the galaxy is concerned, this is just another human military operation, not a rescue mission. Queen Lyrillith nodded slowly. I understand. When will you attempt this rescue? The Korthak celebrate their greatest military victory once every year. This year's celebration is in 6 months. That is when their security will be focused on the ceremony instead of the prisoners. That is when we strike. As Queen Lyrillith prepared to return to her ship, she turned back to Marcus one last time. Captain, why do humans do things like this? Why risk everything for people who are not your own species? Marcus thought about the question for a moment. Your Majesty, Humans spent most of our history fighting each other. We learned how to be cruel and destructive and terrible, but we also learned that sometimes the only way to prove you are not a monster is to fight monsters. Sometimes the only way to find your own humanity is to save someone else's. That night, as the human fleet began preparations for the most dangerous mission in their military history, Queen Lyrelith sat in her chambers and dared to hope for the first time in 3 years. Maybe her daughter was alive. Maybe there was still a chance to bring her home. She did not know that in 6 months her world would change forever. She did not know that the rescue mission would succeed, but at a cost that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She did not know that sometimes coming home meant becoming someone different than the person who had left the Korthak homeworld of Gorthak Prime was celebrating. From orbit, the planet looked like a massive military parade, with millions of gray-skinned warriors gathered in the capital city to commemorate their greatest victory. Huge banners hung between the tall metal towers, showing scenes of Korthak conquest and domination. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the sound of war drums and victory chants. Captain Marcus. Chen watched the celebration through the sensors of his stealth ship as it drifted silently in the asteroid field at the edge of the system. The Indomitable and the rest of his fleet were hidden among the space rocks, their hulls coated with technology that made them invisible to Korthak scanners. For 6 months, human engineers had worked day and night to perfect this stealth system. Now it was time to see if it would work. Contact from the infiltration team, reported Lieutenant Kim from her position at the communications console. Marcus activated the secure channel. Go ahead, Ghost Team. The voice that came through the speakers belonged to Sergeant Williams, leader of the Human Special Forces unit that had been inserted onto the planet 3 weeks ago. We have located the primary target, sir. She is alive but in bad condition. The intel was correct. They are planning a public execution during tomorrow's grand ceremony. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and urgency. Princess Cyrileth was alive, but they were running out of time. What about the other prisoners? We count 43 Zephyrian survivors in the detention complex. Most are in poor health. Some may not survive extraction. Understood. Proceed with the plan. Marcus closed the channel and turned to address his bridge crew. These men and women had volunteered for a mission that everyone agreed was probably suicide. The Korthak homeworld was protected by over 200 warships and countless orbital defense platforms. Even if the rescue succeeded, escape would require fighting through the entire Korthak military. All right, people, Marcus said calmly. We all knew this day would come. In 12 hours, we are going to do something that has never been done before. We are going to penetrate the most heavily defended world in Korthak space, rescue prisoners from their most secure facility, and get out alive. No pressure, muttered Ensign Rodriguez. Marcus smiled. Actually, there is a lot of pressure. The entire galaxy is watching this war. If we succeed, we prove that the Korthak can be beaten. If we fail, the Zephyrians will probably surrender within a year. But here is the thing about pressure. It either crushes you or makes you stronger. And humans have always been very good at getting stronger. Down on the planet, Sergeant Williams and his team moved through the underground tunnels beneath the Korthak capital. They had spent weeks mapping these passages, learning the guard rotations and preparing for this moment. The Korthak were excellent warriors, but they were also predictable. They followed patterns and protocols that could be studied and exploited. Williams pressed himself against the tunnel wall as a Korthak patrol passed overhead. The aliens were arguing about the celebration, complaining about extra duty while everyone else got to enjoy the festival. Williams understood their language. Human intelligence services had cracked Korthak communications within the first year of the war. It was amazing what you could learn when you really tried. The detention complex was exactly where their intelligence had said it would be. Williams and his team had studied the building plans for months, memorizing every corridor and security checkpoint. They had practiced the assault in a full-scale replica built in a secret facility on Earth. Nothing had been left to chance. But as Williams looked at the massive fortress rising above them, he felt a familiar tightness in his stomach. No plan survived contact with the enemy. Something would go wrong. It always did. The key was to be ready to adapt when it happened. Ghost 1 to all units, he whispered into his comm unit. We are in position. Beginning Phase 1. Phase 1 was the hardest part, getting inside without triggering the alarms. Williams and his demolitions expert, Corporal Martinez, moved to the building's power substation. While Martinez planted charges that would create a localized blackout, Williams hacked into the security system using stolen Korthak access codes. The codes worked. The power grid flickered and died, plunging 3 city blocks into darkness. In the confusion that followed, the human team slipped through a service entrance and began making their way toward the detention levels. They encountered their first guards 15 minutes later. 2 Korthak soldiers standing at a checkpoint, flashlights in hand, grumbling about the power failure. Williams made a series of hand signals to his team. Take them alive if possible, dead if necessary. But quietly, the takedown was over in seconds. The Korthak never saw the humans coming. They were unconscious before they hit the floor, drugged with fast-acting sedatives that would keep them asleep for hours. Williams dragged the bodies into a storage closet and continued deeper into the complex. The prison cells were located on sub-level 5, behind 3 layers of security doors and energy fields. Williams expected this part to be difficult. What he did not expect was the smell. The detention level reeked of fear, pain, and death. The Korthak had not bothered to maintain proper life support for their prisoners. The air was hot and stale, filled with the sounds of suffering. Williams had seen many terrible things in his military career, but this was worse than most. "Dear God," whispered Private Chen as they moved down the corridor lined with cells. "How long have these people been here?" "Too long," Williams replied grimly. "Find the princess." "Martinez, start prepping the other prisoners for transport. Rodriguez, watch R6. They found Princess Cyrileth in a cell at the far end of the corridor. Williams almost did not recognize her from the photos he had studied. The elegant, graceful being he had seen in intelligence files was gone. In her place was a broken figure huddled in the corner of a dirty cell, her crystal skin dull and cracked, her silver hair matted and dirty. But when Williams opened the cell door, she looked up at him with eyes that still held intelligence and defiance. She might be beaten, but she was not destroyed. "Princess Cyrileth?" Williams said quietly. "My name is Sergeant Williams. I am with the human military. Your mother sent us to bring you home." The princess stared at him for a long moment as if she could not believe what she was hearing. "Human?" she whispered in accented English. "But how did you—" "The defenses. It is impossible, Your Majesty. Humans are very good at doing impossible things. Can you walk?" She tried to stand and stumbled. Williams caught her and realized she weighed almost nothing. The Korthak had been slowly starving their prisoners. "I can try," she said with determination that reminded Williams why he had volunteered for this mission. The extraction of the other prisoners went faster than expected. Most were too weak to do anything but allow themselves to be carried. A few were unconscious. 2 were already dead, their bodies left in the cells as a reminder to the others of what awaited them. Williams counted 41 living prisoners as his team prepared to move them to the extraction point. That was 2 less than intelligence had suggested, but more than he had dared to hope for. Getting them all out would be difficult, but not impossible. That was when everything went wrong. An alarm began wailing throughout the complex. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in red. Somewhere above them, Williams could hear the sound of running feet and shouting voices. "Ghost 1 to control," he said into his comm unit. "We have been discovered." "Repeat, we have been blown." Captain Marcus Chen's voice came back immediately. "Ghost 1, what is your status?" "We have 41 prisoners ready for extraction, but the facility is going into lockdown. We need that pickup now." "Roger that. Extraction team is on the way. Hold your position." Williams looked at his team and the crowd of weak, frightened prisoners they were trying to save. Holding their position in a hostile facility that was now fully alert would be challenging. Getting everyone to the extraction point alive would require a miracle, but then again, humans specialized in miracles. "All right, people," Williams said to his team. "Time to earn our pay. Martinez, blow the charges we planted in the upper levels. Create as much chaos as possible. Chen, help me get these prisoners moving. Rodriguez, rear guard." As explosions began rocking the upper floors of the detention complex, Williams helped Princess Cyrileth to her feet and started moving toward the extraction point. Behind them, he could hear Korthak security forces beginning their pursuit. The most dangerous part of the mission was just beginning. Getting into the fortress had been hard. Getting out alive would be nearly impossible, but that was a problem for the next few minutes. Right now, Williams focused on putting one foot in front of the other and keeping the prisoners moving. Everything else could wait. High above them, Captain Marcus Chen prepared to bring his fleet out of hiding and face the entire Korthak military.
The easy part was over.
The extraction shuttle raced through the atmosphere of Gorthak Prime, with half the Korthak Air Force in pursuit. Pilot Commander Sarah Park pushed the engines beyond their safety limits, diving between the massive towers of the capital city, while enemy fighters fired energy weapons that lit up the sky like deadly fireworks. In the passenger compartment, Sergeant Williams held Princess Cyrilleth against his chest as the shuttle bucked and rolled through the turbulent air. Around them, the other rescued prisoners were strapped into emergency seats, their faces pale with fear and hope. Many were too weak to understand what was happening. They just knew that someone was trying to save them. "Extraction shuttle to Indomitable," Commander Park called over the comm system. "We have the packages, but we are taking heavy fire. I do not know if we can make it to the rendezvous point." Captain Marcus Chen's voice crackled back through the interference. "Copy that, Sarah. Keep flying. We are coming to get you." High above the planet, the human fleet dropped their stealth systems and revealed themselves to the Korthak Defense Forces. The Indomitable led the charge, followed by 12 other human ships that had been hiding in the asteroid field. They were vastly outnumbered. The Korthak had over 200 ships in the system, but humans had never cared much about fair fights. "All ships, this is Chen," the captain broadcast to his fleet. "Remember the plan. We are not here to win a battle. We are here to buy time for our people to escape, make every shot count and every second matter." The space battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Korthak fought according to their ancient traditions, forming organized battle lines and engaging in honorable ship-to-ship combat. The humans ignored those traditions completely. They used hit-and-run tactics, electronic warfare, and deception. They made the Korthak chase them through asteroid fields and minefields. They used the planet's own orbital defense platforms against the Korthak fleet by tricking them into friendly fire incidents. But despite their tactics and determination, the humans were taking heavy losses. 3 ships had already been destroyed and the rest were damaged. The Korthak had too many advantages: more ships, better position, and knowledge of the local space. The human fleet could not hold out much longer. "Indomitable to all ships," Marcus broadcast. "Execute Plan Omega. I repeat, execute Plan Omega." Plan Omega was the human fleet's last resort. It called for all ships except the Indomitable to retreat to the jump point and prepare to leave the system. The Indomitable would stay behind to cover their escape, buying time with her own destruction if necessary. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim said from her station, "the other ships are requesting permission to stay and fight." "Tell them to follow orders," Marcus replied calmly. "The mission is to get those prisoners home safely. Everything else is secondary." Down on the planet, the extraction shuttle finally reached the rendezvous point, a small clearing outside the capital city where a larger transport ship waited. But as they approached, Commander Park saw Korthak ground forces surrounding the landing zone. "We have a problem," she announced to her passengers. "The LZ is hot. I can get us down, but taking off again is going to be interesting." Princess Cyrilleth raised her head from Williams's shoulder. Despite her weakness, her voice was steady when she spoke. "Sergeant Williams, I need you to do something for me." "What is it, Your Highness?" "When we get home, I need you to tell my mother something. Tell her that what happened to me was not her fault. Tell her that I do not want revenge for what the Korthak did. I want justice, but not vengeance. Can you remember that?" Williams nodded. "I will tell her, Your Highness, but you can tell her yourself when we get home." The princess smiled sadly. "Perhaps, but in case I cannot, please remember." The shuttle touched down hard in the clearing, its landing gear damaged by enemy fire. Through the viewports, Williams could see Korthak soldiers advancing through the trees. The transport ship was taking off, unable to wait any longer without being destroyed. "Looks like we walk from here," Williams told his team. "Martinez, Rodriguez, help me get the prisoners moving. We head for the backup extraction point." As they began evacuating the shuttle, Commander Park stayed at the controls. "You go ahead, Sergeant. I will hold them off as long as I can. Sarah, you cannot fight off an entire army by yourself. Watch me." Williams wanted to argue, but there was no time. He helped Princess Cyrillith out of the shuttle and began leading the group of prisoners through the forest. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of Park's last stand, the whine of energy weapons, and the roar of shuttle engines pushed beyond their limits. The backup extraction point was 5 kilometers away through dense woodland. Williams knew they would never make it with so many weak prisoners. But they had to try. Human doctrine was clear. You never stopped trying until you were dead. They had gone less than a kilometer when the Korthak caught up with them. Williams heard the sound of pursuit through the trees and knew they were out of time. He helped Princess Cyrillith sit down against a large tree and checked his weapon. Rodriguez Martinez, set up a perimeter. Make every shot count. Sergeant, Princess Cyrillith said quietly, leave me here. Take the others and go. One life is not worth 40. Williams looked down at her, this broken but still proud alien princess who was willing to sacrifice herself for people she barely knew. Your Highness, humans have a saying, we do not leave anyone behind. That includes alien royalty who give stupid orders. The firefight was brief but intense. Williams and his team were good soldiers, but they were outnumbered 50-1. They managed to hold off the first wave of attackers, but more were coming. Williams could hear them moving through the forest, surrounding the small group of humans and prisoners. Then, just when it seemed hopeless, rescue came from an unexpected direction. A new ship dropped through the atmosphere, its hull gleaming silver instead of the usual gray of human vessels. It was a Zephyrian ship, but not like any Williams had ever seen. This one carried weapons. Queen Lyrillith's voice came over the comm system. Human soldiers, this is Queen Lyrillith. I am here to bring my daughter home. The Zephyrian ship's weapons turned the clearing into a storm of energy, but these were not the indiscriminate weapons of destruction that most species used. These were precision instruments that could distinguish between friend and enemy, cutting down Korthak soldiers while leaving the prisoners untouched. It was technology that the galaxy had never seen before, weapons guided by telepathic targeting. Within minutes, the area was secure. The Zephyrian ship landed and Queen Lyrillith emerged wearing armor that sparkled like starlight. She ran to where her daughter sat against the tree and knelt down beside her. Mother? Princess Cyrillith whispered, as if she could not believe what she was seeing. I am here, my child. I am here. Williams watched the reunion and felt something he had not expected, a sense of completion. The mission was not just about rescuing prisoners. It was about proving that some things were worth fighting for, even when victory seemed impossible. But the reunion was cut short by urgent communications from orbit. Captain Marcus Chen's voice crackled through the comm system. All ground units, we need to leave now. The Korthak fleet is regrouping for another attack. The evacuation proceeded quickly. The rescued prisoners were loaded onto the Zephyrian ship while Williams and his surviving team members prepared for extraction. But as they were about to board, Captain Chen made an announcement that changed everything. Ground team, be advised that the Indomitable will not be joining you for the trip home. Our ship is too damaged to make the jump to hyperspace. We will stay behind to ensure your escape. Williams grabbed a communicator. Captain, there has to be another way. We did not come this far to leave you behind. Sergeant, you know the mission parameters. The prisoners are the priority. Get them home safely. That is an order. High above the planet, Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of his dying ship and watched the rescue vessels jump to hyperspace. His crew worked around him with quiet efficiency, preparing for their final battle. They had accomplished the impossible. They had rescued 41 prisoners from the most heavily defended world in Korthak space. Now it was time to pay the price. Sir, Lieutenant Kim reported, the Korthak fleet is moving to intercept. 200 ships, closing fast. All hands, this is the captain, Marcus announced over the ship's comm system. Today we make our stand. Today we show the galaxy what humans are made of. It has been an honor serving with all of you. The final battle of the Indomitable lasted 3 hours. The human ship fought with a fury that amazed even her enemies. She took down 12 Korthak vessels before her weapons failed. She survived direct hits from weapons that should have vaporized her. She fought until her life support failed and her hull cracked open like an egg. But in the end, math is math. One ship against 200 can only last so long. When it was over, when the Indomitable finally went dark and began her long fall toward the planet below, the Korthak fleet hung silent in space. They had won, but it did not feel like victory. They had lost more ships in this single battle than in any engagement since the war began. On the bridge of the Korthak flagship, Admiral Vorthak stared at the wreckage of the human ship and tried to understand what he had just witnessed. "Why?" he asked his aide.